Rome didn't build its empire on courage alone. Its real power was debt. Most of us think of Roman legions as honorable, disciplined soldiers, unstoppable warriors. But behind those shining helmets and sharp swords was a massive economic system. Food, weapons, roads, salaries. Thousands of soldiers had to be fed, catapults had to be built. All of that meant a lot of money. So how did Rome manage to finance all those wars? And why does that still matter today? Because when you think a little deeper, you realize that war wasn't just fought on the battlefield. It was built right into the financial system itself. And once that system started working, there was no way to stop it. Expansion was no longer a choice. It was a necessity. Sound familiar? In the early days of the Republic, Rome's army was made up of citizens. If you owned land, you were sent to fight. You brought your own weapons and returned to your farm when the war ended. But as Rome grew and wars dragged on, that system started to collapse. The go fight for a year and come back era was over. Rome needed professional soldiers. That's when Rome centralized the financing of war. The state began paying fixed wages to its soldiers, small but enough to buy loyalty. Then came the turning point. Conquest itself became a money-making business. New conquest equals new taxes, new slaves, new gold, new revenue. War turned into a self-sustaining loop. But here's where the danger began. Rome didn't rely only on taxes. It started borrowing. During the Punic Wars against Carthage, the Republic took enormous loans from the wealthy elite. These weren't patriotic donations. They were investments, and those investors wanted returns, interest, tax rights, trade privileges. War had become a business, and as it became more profitable, wars became more frequent. Sound familiar again? Over time, the system completely changed. Generals turned into political figures who promised loot. Senators became partners in violence. Private companies ran everything from logistics to tax collection, getting richer by the day. It was military capitalism in a toga. But everything has consequences. Soldiers' wages, debt interest, loot. The state treasury constantly needed new income. When conquests slowed, Rome used the oldest trick in the book, currency debasement. Under Nero, the silver content of the denarius was reduced. Later emperors kept doing the same. The result? Inflation, distrust, collapse. The rich, they got even richer. They hid their wealth in land, slaves, and foreign accounts. The common people paid taxes with devalued coins, public services collapsed, corruption spread. And the cost of war, once again, fell on the lower classes. This wasn't just a military collapse, it was a financial one. Now, look around you. Governments are running massive deficits. Wars are financed through debt. Central banks are printing money to fill the gaps. Defense companies are profiting from crises. The economy can't stop. It has to keep expanding. Sound familiar? Rome's story is really a warning. If a system depends on constant growth, it will eventually implode. When there are no more lands to conquer, no more resources to extract, the debts remain, but the income disappears. That's when the state starts turning on its own people. More taxes, weaker money, more control. Today we call it taxation, monetary policy, or stimulus packages. But the mechanism is exactly the same. The rich get richer, the people lose purchasing power. Wars are still financed by debt. The Afghanistan War, over $2 trillion, mostly borrowed. Who gets the interest? Who gets the contracts? Who ends up paying the bill? You already know the answer. And just like in Rome, the system feeds on itself. Debt becomes the new normal. We're not waiting for crises anymore. We're just postponing the collapse. We act like everything's fine, until it's not. That's why history matters, because it's not just the past, it's a warning system. Rome's collapse shows us this. When a state hands too much power to private finance, becomes addicted to expansion, and devalues its money, it eventually crushes its own citizens, not out of malice, but because the system has no brakes. Today, we live in a different kind of empire, digital, global, built on capital. But the game hasn't changed. Money and power still walk hand in hand. War is still profitable. Inflation still punishes the poor, and financial illusions still work. Until they don't. So what can we do? First, we have to recognize the pattern. Most people don't even see it. They think inflation is fate, taxes are necessary, debt is freedom. But the Stoics had a word for that: delusion. We can't completely escape the system, but we can stop playing blindly. We can build resilience, not just with money, but with awareness. Learn financial history, not just personal finance. Understand the system, not just the market. And most importantly, as